I am the King of Dreams, ruler of the Nightmare Realm. The dreams and nightmares no longer seem to recognize their monster. You will remind them.
How's it going, fellow Endless? Welcome to my, what I want to say is Mahusive breakdown for all of the information we just got out of Netflix Geeked Week for The Sandman. That's including the brand new trailer, what the cast had to say behind the scenes with the sit-down session they had with Felicia Day, but also episode stills that aren't even featured in terms of new looks, even in the trailer, even a bit of bonus information with regards to special announcements such as Mark Hamill's involvement in the series, and so much more. Like, this is going to be quite an info dump of a video. We're getting into all things The Sandman. So, The Sandman, right before we get into the breakdown of everything else, will be coming to your screen, or should I say app on your TV, or wherever you decide to watch Netflix on August 5th, which is a bit sooner than what I thought. So yeah, make sure you mark your calendars because The Sandman Season 1 is coming August 5th. And by the way, just to remind you, would really appreciate a like on this video if you do go on to enjoy it. And hey, why not subscribe, because I'll be keeping you up to date with everything The Sandman. So let's dig in, and this will also be helpful at the same time to those of you who aren't really familiar with The Sandman. Just in case you don't know, essentially Dream, aka Morpheus, one of the Endless, is captured in 1916 in an occult ritual by the Order of Ancient Mysteries. And that is where Charles Dance's character, of who you may have seen in previous teasers, also production stills of which we're getting into in this big breakdown video, in an attempt to seek out immortality, tries to summon death, but kind of actually instead summons her brother Dream. Also, side note, if you're wondering who is, what is, where is, how is, what is an Endless? Well, Endless are essentially more or less the embodiment of their very names, the forces that are their names, such as Dream. You know, Morpheus is the Lord of Dreaming. Or Death, kind of obviously Death. And the same goes with Desire, of whom we see in the trailers and production stills, Destruction, Despair, Destiny, and Delirium. And they're also quite the dysfunctional family, you could say, which, you know, also is quite a propelling aspect to the Sandman story. And as you can kind of tell, even with this new trailer, when Dream is captured by this ritual, he's left very weak. So Roderick imprisons Dream in what we've already seen in quite a few teasers now, and that is this little crystal prison, which is just, again, even if you are brand new to this series, like if you look up some of the stills from that of the source material, the way they're adapting this and what we're about to get into is incredible. Like from the prison to the dreaming, all of this looks visually stunning and very accurate. Also, one big aspect to the story, which will be quite a large portion of this season, I imagine, is that Dream's totems of power were taken, which are made up of his helm, also a pouch of sand, and his ruby. Now, without getting into too many more big details, Dream usually escapes around 1988, but the difference with this live-action iteration and adaptation of The Sandman is that he will indeed be getting out in 2021 to give it a bit more of that modern-day approach. That is when he returns to his realm of the dreaming, and it's more or less in ruin compared to what it was, which was beautiful, as we see in this trailer. So the very opening shot, let's get into that now, is that we see Dream holding his helm, announcing in a voiceover that he is the King of Dreams, ruler of the Nightmare Realm. Which is when we get to see Jenna Coleman's Constantine. Now, yes, it is pronounced Constantine, but I'm also going to be yelled at by people saying it's Constantine. It's one of those weird things where it went on for a lot of people to be called Constantine. I am used to that as well, but just don't have a go at me. People like to call it both ways, but I'm going to say Constantine. By the way, Jenna Coleman's Johanna Constantine, of whom she'll be playing, I believe, both the old and the modern day version of Constantine, because Sandman gets a bit timey-wimey as well, with Dream going way back in the past. Constantine is talking to Mad Hetty here, or she refers to her as Hetty. I like the London accents here, and she is a very old character, Hetty that is, even in the early issues of The Sandman, claiming to be around 247 years old. She has essentially hid her heart from death and hasn't been taken in all of her time, but even then, she's quite ambiguous to my understanding. Now, Mad Hetty sets this trailer up quite nicely through setting the stage of saying that he's coming, Innie, and Johanna Constantine is like, you know, what you want about who? Hetty goes on to say Morpheus, you know, the Sandman. That's when Constantine replies saying he's a fairy story, Hetty, because, you know, don't forget that Morpheus has been imprisoned for an extremely long time, like all the way back from 1916 to 2021, where it's being set in the present, well, kind of present day. Now, in the sit down before they played this trailer for Netflix Geek Week, interestingly, Jenna Coleman explains that this version of Constantine, or Johanna Constantine, is somewhat upgraded in her clientele and a bit posh. She operates in the world at a bit more of a higher level. They used an example of that. The Queen and the royal family are literally her clients, so that's kind of what they mean by an upgraded clientele. This is also a look at her character poster. We've got quite a few new character posters, and it's a nice little feature of the crucifix in there. This is where Mad Hetty claims that he is no fairy story and that he is back, and this is likely after Morpheus has finally returned after his imprisonment for so many years. This is where we get some extended look at Morpheus's escape, of which I say extended because we've seen this in various different teasers now, but now we get a bit more of a demonstration of his power in that moment right before he does actually escape, in where we can see on screen right now that he's wrecking these security guards. I don't want to quite get into mega details for those who just don't know the story or who may have forgotten the story, but you know, it does involve who goes to visit him and talk to him over the many decades of imprisonment, and how it just, you know, all gets up to this moment after a long period of time, which is where we hear from Lucienne, the librarian. As we were briefly discussing earlier, she's talking about the realm and the palace because they are not quite as he left them. This is where we get absolutely gorgeous shots of the dreaming and the way the realm once was, from the gates to like this wide shot. It looks honestly beautiful, and so much more than what I even expected with the dreaming in its full glory. It was reported that the Sandman, each episode has around about a budget of near enough 15 million per episode. So yeah, they're not really holding back on this series. Lucienne goes on to explain to Morpheus that with him gone, the realm began to decay and crumble, and he just looks absolutely devastated, and you kind of would be after seeing what it once was and what it now is. Now, at this point in the story, this is when Morpheus goes to get his totems of power back, of which were originally taken way back then, but since the decades and many decades have passed, let's just say they've gone to various very interesting characters. So this will be explored over quite a few episodes, in where the Pouch of Sand will be leading Morpheus in Constantine's direction. Then we have Dream's Helm, which will lead him into Hell with Gwendolyn Christie's Lucifer, of which I can't wait, which I'm also a bit like, I wish we saw more of that in this trailer, but that reminds me, check out my previous The Sandman video, because we get quite a bit of teasers for Hell, like literal looks at Hell, but maybe more on this in a little bit. And then, of course, going to get the ruby from John Dee, aka Dr. Destiny, played by David Thewlis. I hope I didn't butcher that second name, but I was very happy when he was cast as Dr. Destiny, because I think he's a great actor, and God, I can't wait to see that. So Morpheus going on this little journey to get all of them back is going to be, well,
this is where the fun begins.
This is all in an effort to obviously eventually restore the dreaming to its former state, and the series will be covering the first 2 volumes, just in case any of you are interested in picking up Preludes and Nocturnes and The Doll's House to get a little bit more insight into how this will be adapted onto screen when you see it on August 5th. And just to give you a little bit of a better idea of where certain storylines will be happening with regards to Morpheus retrieving his Totems of Power back, out of the 11 episodes, I believe around episode 4 is when a Hope in Hell storyline will be adapted, and that is of course when Dream goes to Hell, speaks to Lucifer in an effort to get his helm back. And also, I believe in 2021 we had Neil Gaiman tweet that wait until you watch episode 5 of Netflix Sandman TV show. It's worse when it's David Thewlis sitting in the corner of the diner fondling his ruby. So going off of that, it does seem as though episode 5 will be adapting 24 Hour Diner, and where it will visit the Dr. Destiny story with regards to recovering Dream's ruby. Around about this part in the trailer, this is where they feature Dream with his sister Death, of which we do have some stills from the episodes as well. It also shows us John D, aka Dr. Destiny, with the ruby, and we also hear Dream say that the dreams and nightmares seem to no longer recognize their master. I will remind them, right before we get to see a teaser of Boyd Holbrook's Corinthian. Now this is like right at the end of the trailer, and this is what I mean. I thought there'd be a little bit more content in there, but I kind of love this moment because, long story short, big fan of Boyd Holbrook, seen him in quite a few things, and when he was cast as the Corinthian, I think it is slam, bang, spot on casting. In this moment, the Corinthian is also acknowledging Morpheus's return by saying he's free. He's out of his cage. So just this very brief look at Boyd Holbrook's Corinthian. He looks pretty creepy already with that blood running down his eyes in that slight side angle that we get. But I'm probably showing, once again, some production stills on screen where we get to see an actual look at the Corinthian, like get a little bit of a better look at him face on, and behind and underneath those glasses. Well, if you know, you know. But if you don't, let's actually get into the Corinthian just a little bit for those who are completely clueless, and why I think Boyd Holbrook's, way of acting will perfectly bring about this character on screen. Now, the Corinthian appears in the second volume, The Doll's House, but I wonder if they're going to slightly break it up and tease larger characters like this in earlier episodes as well, teasing when we get to that second volume storyline in the actual show. I can just imagine like a scene or two kind of cutting to that character, just somewhat, setting up what we're going to get to in a bit more concentration later on. But the Corinthian, without getting into too many or any really big spoiler details, to give you this overview, is essentially a nightmare created by Dream, Morpheus. Or as described by Boyd Holbrook himself in the sit-down, is basically the metamorphosis of your worst nightmare. So back to his eyes, of which, we saw the little blood dripping down there, or why he's wearing shades most of the time when he's going out in the land of the living, so to speak. Yeah, his eyes, he has kind of teeth inside of them, and that's going to be incredibly unsettling, as you can imagine, when we see those. Yeah, that's going to really kind of give you that tingly feeling down your spine. Now, due to the very thing or like nature he was created for, he is extremely sadistic. He enjoys murdering, and let's just say didn't exactly like playing by the intended rules or role that he was designed for. So when Dream was imprisoned, let's just say he had quite a bit of a field day with murdering men and influencing others to commit serial killings, and becoming very, very popular amongst that community, I guess you could say. Now, as kind of teased at the end of this trailer, when he's acknowledging Dream's return, let's just say when Dream does return after his many, many, many years in imprisonment, things get quite interesting between both of them. And his character poster looks absolutely great, with the caption on Twitter, on the official Sandman page, even saying, "I'm my own man now, and I intend to stay that way." So that should give you quite a clue for what could be going on between him and his master, the man who created the Corinthian himself, Morpheus, and why perhaps the Corinthian won't really want to go back to the Dream. And also, in earlier teasers, it kind of sounds as though Boyd Holbrook's Corinthian is talking to Roderick Burgess when identifying which Endless that they captured when intending to get Death. He says, "That's Dream, and you're gonna need all the help you can get." So it seems that maybe Roderick Burgess is conversing with Dream's own creation, the Corinthian, when identifying him, and, that's why the Corinthian knows of Dream being imprisoned in all those years and has been having a bit of fun in between. Now, at the very, very, very end of this trailer, after the Sandman logo flashes by on screen, we get a very brief teaser of Matthew the Raven, basically Morpheus's messenger, and also formerly known as Matthew Cable, of which you may recognize from his involvement of when he was formerly a human, Matthew Cable, in Swamp Thing. Let's get to a little bit of bonus information now on some of the production stills. So, it was announced that Mark Hamill is playing Merv Pumpkinhead. Now, Gaiman did say that Merv was always in the comics, on the one hand, the comic relief, but on the other hand, the voice of sanity. The voice of just going, this is actually kind of nuts. he gets to be that person, especially when arguing with Patton Oswalt's Matthew. So yeah, I'm very happy as a big Mark Hamill fan that he is going to be involved in the show, and it seems like quite a fitting character, and I assume it's going to be voice acted considering Merv Pumpkinhead, but we're gonna have to wait and see that ultimately. But yeah, that made me very, very happy. But let's take a little bit of an extra look at the production still. So the first one we get is of the dreaming. We see Morpheus standing there with Lucian, basically another angle of what we even got in this latest trailer. And you can just see it looks like it's gone from the Shire to Mordor. That's the only way I can liken it. Now, up next, the second production still that we have, this is of Charles Dance's Roderick Burgess. I'm really looking forward to his involvement. I think it's brilliant casting. Again, we actually saw more of him in the previous first looks that we got that you're probably seeing on screen right now. But I feel like this show has nailed the casting. This is something they voiced quite a bit in how careful they were with the casting, despite some people kicking up a fuss with various castings like maybe Johanna Constantine, but that's, to be honest, more of a licensing issue. Long story short, Bad Robot Productions, J.J. Abrams is dealing with an HBO Max Constantine show, so that's kind of why they thought like, hey, let's do Johanna, but apparently Johanna was involved from the very get-go of the planning of this show. But yeah, like, without rambling too much, love the casting here for Charles Dance's Roderick Burgess, and he just looks the part. We have Desire here, and this, I believe, is a shot from episode 10. It gives us these details in the description. Now here we get a shot that we've seen in some previous teaser footage of, and I believe in this latest trailer, of Dream in The Dreaming, and I think this could be him trying to restore some of his realm, albeit if this is in episode 2, obviously he won't have his totems of power back, which is probably after this moment he's like, right, need to go retrieve the helm, the ruby, the pouch of sand. So this is maybe him trying to do something with it. But up next is something I've already briefly teased, and that is Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian. As you can tell, these glasses do very much so cover his eyes. I feel like I've said a lot of what I've already wanted to say about the Corinthian. I feel like he's going to be a very twisted, very well portrayed character. Well, serial killing, literal nightmare embodiment that I think a lot of you will be hyped for as well. Up next, we see Tom Sturridge's Dream, Morpheus with Jenna Coleman's Johanna Constantine. See, I'm getting flipped between Constantine and Constantine. You can clearly tell I've referenced it as both before. And you can see, as Jenna Coleman has teased as well, she's in a bit more of a posh, almost, you know, trench coat rather than the tattered one that Constantine is usually in. And up next is a really good look at Lucifer in Hell. Now, again, check out my previous video. I go on a bit of a ramble as to how Gwendoline Christie as Lucifer is very, very spot on for all of those wondering, A, why isn't it a guy? B, why isn't it Tom Ellis? There is a legitimate reason for it. It very much so works. And if anything, despite whether you're a big Lucifer fan or not of that of the TV show like I was and still am, this is incredibly accurate casting, even more accurate than, way more accurate than the Lucifer TV show, despite how much I love that. Again, if you really don't understand what I'm saying and are inherently disagreeing from the get-go, watch my previous video and you'll understand why this Lucifer is really spot on, and why, if anything, the Tom Ellis Lucifer is a bit more of an Elseworlds Lucifer. Now here we get the still that I teased earlier with John Dee, Dr. Destiny with the Ruby. Cannot wait for David Thewlis to play this role. This is in episode 5, so more or less confirms what I was saying earlier with how that episode will be adapting Dr. Destiny's story with that very issue of the 24-hour diner. We get a little bit of an extra glimpse of Death here with her brother Morpheus, of course. Now, apparently this is in episode 6. Now, here we actually get a look at Gilbert, played by Stephen Fry. Now, this is episode 7, according to the details. Now, without giving any massive spoilers away, you can liken Gilbert to almost like the Corinthian, and how Corinthian is like the embodiment of a nightmare, you know, kind of reflecting the darkest part of humanity. And Gilbert here is also like a manifested human form, if you will, part of the dreaming. So yeah, this is happening around episode 7. Interesting that Stephen Fry is playing Gilbert there. Now, another big character in the next still is of Morpheus and Rose Walker. Another very, very crucial character in The Sandman. I don't really want to give anything away about Rose Walker. Now, this is in episode 8, this particular still. I love what Dream is wearing there. Very reminiscent of like the kind of long robes, if you know what I mean. Here we get an up-close look at Lucien. This is in episode 9, so this is towards the very ending, because don't forget, I believe there are around 11 episodes. And yeah, I think that more or less concludes my Sandman update ramble today. It felt so good finally getting quite a bit more information on the Sandman. This really nice extra look for the show that we've now got a release date for. So let me know what you thought of all of this down in the comments below. Any theories that you have for various ways they could be adapting certain things? What do you think of what it looks like? Do you think that it lives up to the budget? Does it even live up to your imagination from that of the stills? I think it must do, considering that there are side-by-side literal panels to what they've done in the show that I'm probably showing on screen, just showing you how Neil Gaiman has really not just like overseen this production, but has been critically and crucially involved. So just so you know, this series is down to its casting very much so approved by Neil Gaiman. Do subscribe to the channel. Do double check if you're not subscribed, just in case you want to stay up with any and all updates. I'll be doing reviews, breakdowns, you name it, and any further little trailers that we get or anything like that. This is the place to be. And check out some of my other content on the channel, of course. If you got this far, would really appreciate a like. Links, as always, are in the description down below to my social media, such as Twitter is the main place that I like to hang out on outside of YouTube. But again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you endless in the dreaming. Goodbye.